Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Paul's Monday 4 p.m. video conferencing meeting. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest today, who I've got to know very, very well over the last few weeks, because he's been the guy that's helped me to set up my whole Zoom platform and given me some really invaluable tips on how to get this moving seamlessly, interestingly, without spending a fortune, which I really appreciated. And one of the things that Malcolm did say to me was, have a look at what you've got to start off with and see if that won't work. And a lot of that is working very, very well for me. So we're going to be chatting about a whole lot of things regarding Zoom. The topic is zooming into the future of training and educating at distance, and how we can really use this tool and leverage it for income or leverage it for our businesses, whether it's meetings, whether it's whatever kind of meeting it happens to be. So just a little bit about Malcolm Haefner. What he's asked me to say is that this is new to all of us. If you look at the proliferation of just this particular platform, Zoom, since December 2019, it is quite extraordinary. It's increased probably by 50 times in terms of the usage. So it's new to all of us, but right now we have a forgiving audience because everyone's kind of getting used to it and they don't expect you to be absolutely slick. So it's a good time to try a few things and get ahead while you can, so that eventually when standards do start tightening up, you're really ahead of the curve. Shot. Okay, so we're going to be talking a bit about education and training. And Malcolm, how do you train people in person and at distance at the same time? Is that possible?
Okay, so let me backtrack a bit. A little while ago, we boarded a flight one night and we woke up in a foreign country where everything was new to us. But it's only new to us. It's a common experience for a lot of people already in education. If we take, for example, UNISA has been using this platform for years, where a lecturer might be based in the UK, but we've got centers around the country, UNISA centers around the country, and especially when you've got to do practicals, you'll drive into, say, the Bloem office, and there'll be 25 people in Bloem and 40 people in Cape Town and a whole lot of people in Joburg, and all of you have to interact with a lecturer. The lecturer will also have students in front of them in person. Yeah. So it's not a new thing, and it's something that you've got the benefit of playing with now to give yourself the edge, because the rest of us that haven't been doing this, the education sector that hasn't been doing this, is not used to us. And the more you practice and the more you become au fait with being yourself and being able to express yourself as you would ordinarily in front of people, the more you're going to gain the edge over your competitors. And as Paul, we've discussed this before, the industry that's had this in place since the first modem was released is the voyeur industry. They've been clocking up, I suppose, non-educational purposes, but certainly for fun. They've been clocking up people observing, their business trade for a very, very long time. So I'm not for 1 second suggesting that you go and have a look at these sites, but there are ways of doing it. So let's discuss using a camera, for example. Mm-hmm. So if I'm sitting as a teacher in front of a class and I've got students at distance, you can't use your laptop and the camera on your laptop, because as a teacher you need to move around and draw on a whiteboard or on a blackboard. So in the classroom, as you would have a student, you'd put a tripod up with a self-tracking and framing camera, and yes, that would follow the teacher around as instruction is taking place, and people at distance or students at distance would have the same view of what students locally are enjoying. Along with it will go microphones that follow the camera, so the experience from distance becomes the same as sitting actually in the class. If you add speakers to that and you add some other technology, we can actually have the pictures of the students up on the screens that are at distance, and the whole class can see them and interact with them like they were with them.
So technically what would happen is that the teacher would need to be on their feet.
They could sit down, stand up, walk around, the camera would follow them. It's called a self-tracking camera. And
Okay.
the image that we can project onto the screens or the whiteboard in the classroom is the pictures or the images of the students that are at distance, so that the students in class can see the students at distance, and so can the teacher, and everyone can hear each other clearly on a two-way communication basis.
Great. And would the teacher have a set of headphones on, or where would the microphone be?
So the best solution there is to have the microphones built into the camera, so that or near the camera, that are distance pickup that will pick up where the camera moves to. So if the camera is following the teacher, the mics will follow the teacher as well. And if a student then answers a question, the mics will be able to switch to behind them and pick up the voice of a student that's in class and project it to the distant students. Paul,
So
on that
Malcolm,
note, I have raised something in the corner there, which is the first part of putting yourself online, and that's called vanity. So I've said over there, if you just click on your settings menu, which is in the top right-hand corner, not now, it has to be your home page. There's a little icon that looks like a bicycle cog. You click on that, you click on video, and then you can click on touch up my appearance. And digitally, we'll clean up the image to make you look pristine for those people online.
Cool. So on that score, who is the digital you?
So a very important part of the future that you find yourselves in now is creating the digital you. So before you had a you, a person that sat in front of an audience and expressed yourself in a natural habitat, and now you have to go to the length of creating the digital you. And digital you is your social presence. It is your network of followers, and it's all about who you are digitally, and it is what you make of it. And carrying on like things didn't happen is not going to give you a digital presence. It's a case of actually getting into digital media and making yourself present, so that those people that are used to following you can follow you, and those people that should be following you nationally and internationally now have a chance to do so. And it's a very, very important thing. And as Paul and I have gone at lengths to this, or discussed this at lengths, today the young generation, the teenagers, are used to going viral. They're used to putting the right hashtags on, they're used to creating the right prefixes and keywords that then start running as people pick them up in their search engines. And they now start going viral with silly videos and content. But that is also an area that we need to play in. Today, if a teenager gets pregnant and they want to talk about it to somebody other than their parents, they'll get onto social media, TikTok, YouTube, whatever it is, and they will start looking for the help that they need. And they will type in keywords, and they will, within a short period of time, be chatting directly to professionals that will help them through this without any encumbrance whatsoever. So it's a platform that none of us are used to, but we have to become used to. Yeah, go ahead.
So are you really saying that in a sense you can have a different persona on different platforms, as opposed to having a consistent persona digitally?
Well, you have to have a different persona, because the way that you used to do things is you would pick up on a nuance between two audience members having a little snigger together about something that was said elsewhere, and you would act on it because you have those triggers. Now, when you're dealing with a whole lot of faces on a screen, you don't have those triggers anymore. So you have to find ways of replacing those triggers and developing a digital signature or a digital you that will allow you to carry on and find those nuances and bring people into your conversation. Because right now, any one of you that have switched onto your picture could be doing anything. You could be replying to your WhatsApps, your emails. You could be planning your day tomorrow. I can't see anything. So the idea is trying to draw your audience into what you're doing, to give you the triggers that you need to see how you're doing and what you need to change in what you're trying to deliver to them. I don't know if that answers your question.
Sure. But I think it's quite an interesting one to us, because possibly up until now, many of us have tried to create a very consistent persona across whatever platforms we use. but we're now finding ourselves on 6, 7, 8, 9, or even 10 different platforms. And essentially you might be speaking to a very different audience on each one, although there's a commonality of people maybe on all of them.
Yeah. Look, there's some things that you can do on any one of these webinars or video calls. You can get people to raise their hands, you can screen share with them, you can whiteboard with them, you can go to a poll. Those are all things that every one of us do. Those are all tools that we all use. But the approach of practicing and actually getting online and watching how other people interact with audience, and how you get they get them to feedback and give you the keys that you need to deliver your message. That's where you've got to spend your time right now. You've actually got to put the time in and come up with the digital you. It's a real thing. You have to start generating a following, and it's easy to do. It's remember, all of us are right in the same place. It's just those that get going with this sooner will get the edge.
It's really almost a little bit like being a professional speaker. The more you've done it, the more relaxed and the more confident you get at it. The more you're able to recover if something doesn't go right. It's pretty much the same with using these kinds of platforms.
Yeah, you have to get used to two-way communication with the people that are involved in the call. So you have to bring out things. You have to ask people specific questions. If you notice that somebody hasn't been online for a while, you need to ask them a question. And once you start asking a class, or you start asking participants to start reacting, you see a lot of them click back on because they're scared you're going to ask them something and they're not ready. So that's the one thing, is the fear factor. But the other thing is actually giving them content that is going to create the interest. It's being silly. It's doing things that will keep people amused. It's picking on them. It's being false, doing whatever you need to do, like the pig that's coming forward now. I can see it already.
Like inviting Priscilla to the meeting.
Exactly. But those just incidentally, Paul's hit on something that's very unique there. It's silliness that will get you followings digitally.
Yeah.
Silly activities will make people follow you because it's abnormal. It's unusual. People are looking for that edge, that unusual behavior that they're going to say, oh, what's that guy doing? You know, why is he doing that? And while I'm looking at Priscilla, I might zoom in on the book in the background and see what it's about, and try and Google that while I'm listening to his video. But it's all about actually getting the edge on how you present. It's what's going to put you ahead.
And almost a sense tapping into what Joe was speaking about last week, and that is making it a lot of fun, being lighthearted, and trying not to just be so serious on video conferences, because people are not there to get bored. They're there to learn, and they learn better when they're having fun.
Exactly. You guys forget very quickly about how you used to do things naturally. Tell a short story, get our interest, and we all want to hear about your history. We all want to get a little snapshot into who the person is that we're talking to. Smile, look happy. I mean, I'm not smiling now. It's a Monday. There's nothing much to smile about on a Monday other than pressure. But nevertheless, it's you know, your audience want to get something out of it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be wasting their time getting in. And once they're in, it's your chance to keep them in and keep them hungry and keep them coming back for more. There's a couple of good pointers about don't try anything new on race day. When you're starting on a webinar or you're starting on a meeting, don't try something new, because inevitably you don't know how it might turn out wonderfully, it might fail dismally, but just try and keep to what you know, and try and pick on the audience. Somebody's going to give something away, and you can bring them in a humorous way.
So it's a bit like running Comrades. You don't try anything new on race day. Ray is on the call. He's run Comrades a few times. Malcolm's run it 4 times. I've done it 3 times. And what we know is never a new pair of tackies on Comrades day, never a new pair of socks, never a new anything. Keep with what you're familiar with, and the same rule really applies here.
Yeah. Look, the idea is to keep everyone engaged. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. They're going to switch off and they're going to move on. And there's a lot of things that you can pick up on. I mean, if you look at Paul as an example, you can see the running picture behind you. You're getting already an ability to draw up something about that persona. I'm not going to comment about the curtains, but there's a lot that you can pick up from the people that you're talking to, and you can pick on them with it to keep it lighthearted, to keep them entertained, and to keep them present.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you replace the atmosphere that you have around people in person? The nuances, the triggers, the participation, the meeting within the meeting, the chuckle and comment with the person next to you. How do you kind of almost replicate that?
You've got to get your audience engaging. So if they start engaging, and you will hear the chit chats going on, and you will start having to mute people, but you will pick up those nuances and those, you'll be able to, where I'm going with this whole thing is actually getting you into that natural environment, which is now the digital you. Whereas before you're very at home, and now you're in a new place. So you're going to have to get that experience together. I mentioned earlier about the jumbo jet, getting in a jumbo jet the night before and waking up in a new place. Travel's interesting. That's why we do it. And you know, we all tend to focus on the negativity. But going to a new place and having everything slow down to which it has is giving you the ability to relaunch yourselves. And it's not just in a local environment. You now have the whole world open to you. So before you would have stuck with your blinkers on and stayed there because it's a warm and happy place. But now you've got a much bigger place to play, where you're competing against people all over the world, and you have a chance to stand out and make yourself known.
Okay, so we've got a question here. I'm not quite sure if it's a general question or a specific one, but from Adolf, he says, can the admin switch on video as they can mute voice? And the answer is yes, isn't it?
Look, if I want to keep my video off, I'm going to keep my video off. It's just one of those things. So you can, the reason why you can mute everyone is because when you all come into a meeting and we all got background noise and we're tapping the table and chewing and drinking our coffee and all of that, you don't want all those things coming through. It's got to be a controlled environment.
Yeah.
But I can't make Joe.
You can't force him to put his video on.
No, I can't. I can't make him bomb if I don't want to.
Well, it's nice to know that you can have a bad hair day on Zoom and not get found out.
Joe's exposing himself. Now look at him.
He looks like he's coming out of a dark cave.
Yeah, but he still can't talk. So you kept him mute. So
we've kept him on mute. No, he's kept himself on mute, I think. Okay, so Malcolm, how do you get your message across and know, this is an interesting thing, know that you're being understood? That must be quite difficult.
So again, most of this is two-way communication. So in order, I don't know if you can hear the background noise that just happened around here, but we'll come back to that. I've got a noise cancellation microphone on because I'm at the office. So just one of the things when you're talking to people, if you don't want people to hear the background noise when you speak, you can cut that out quite easily. So if I was at home like you or Paul or in an office, I wouldn't need this. But without it, it would be very distracting for everyone. So the idea when you engaging anybody is that you have to get used to asking questions and keeping people involved. You can't, if you want to lecture, then you go for a webinar. That's when you can just run a lecture with the least amount of intrusion. The only thing that's going to happen is messaging on the side. And you can get to the point, or get from point A to point B as quickly as possible in the time frame that you have. That is a lecture. But if you want to engage and actually run a meeting, then you have to get used to asking people questions and getting responses out of them to keep them interested. Because the minute you become, I'm going to use the word boring, they're gone. They've switched off, or they actually either literally or figuratively switched off.
Well, it's quite easy. If they switch their video off, they can literally go off and have a cup of coffee, even, take a drive to the shop and go and buy something and come back again. And if it's a 2-hour training session, you won't know that they're gone.
Look, if you're running a class, you can make it compulsory that anybody that doesn't have the video active will be cut out. You can make those rules as onerous as you want them to be. If you, for example, a teacher teaching a class, you can forbid the fact that they turn off video. But if you're running a session where you're public speaking, I saw earlier on before the Zoom bombing came on that you had Rotary coming on. If you're talking to an audience, there isn't much that you can do besides getting them to interact with you. Otherwise, you will lose them.
And then whereabouts do you change that? In your upfront settings before you set the meeting, or in the actual meeting settings for that meeting?
Switching off video is not something that you can control. You can make it a rule if you control. If you're a teacher and your students, you can make it a rule. But other than that, if somebody wants to get up and go get a cup of coffee, they can. We can't make it that onerous.
And then, Malcolm, the different ways of engagement. Obviously, there's a chat box. You've also got breakaway rooms that you can allocate people to for a period of time and then bring them back in again. What are the different ways of and then there's polling, obviously. So what are any other ways that there are of really engaging and getting that engagement going?
You can get people to raise their hands to acknowledge something or to vote.
That's the reactions?
So there's reactions. You can do polling. And you can use the whiteboard as a tool. But a lot of this depends on you, the ability of you to keep people engaged. And it sounds like a different world to create a digital you. It sounds like a different, something for other people to do. But you need to try and get onto Instagram and onto other groups like it and get yourself a following and learn what works digitally. So if you post something that is a hit, you'll know you should get 30, 40, 50, 100, 10,000, 50,000 views, then you know you're onto a good thing. But those are the cues that you're looking at what makes your digital you, your part of you.
Okay, so if you're doing this type of setup where it's a meeting or a video conference, and you want to show a few slides, what are the rules in terms of how long you can really keep slides on before you start losing your audience? In other words, do you have a ratio of slides to having you in the middle of the picture?
So you need to be doing those things as short and sweet and as quickly as possible. So they've got to be short, captivating slides, and they have to be on for a very short period of time. 12 minutes is the suggested time of a session, believe it or not. That's how long, I mean, there's different opinions, but over the course, you can definitely keep somebody entertained for 12 or 15 minutes on a video call. And really that's what anything after that is where you're going to struggle to keep people focused.
Okay, so how do you stand out in the crowd as a person of interest?
So how each one of us has been doing things historically is a part of what makes us unique. And applying that into a digital scenario and getting a following based on that is what is going to take the work and what is going to take the involvement and the time from you. And it takes a long time. If you started an Instagram account today and you had really impressive things that people liked following, and you started following the right people, because it's about you tagging the right people as well. So if you, Paul du Toit, happen to get a like out of, I don't know, you can pick on any actor, Bruce Springsteen, you'd have all his following wanting to find out why he liked what you posted, and suddenly you have a following. But if you had to start an Instagram account today and you had the most interesting topics to raise, it's still going to take you a very, very long time to build up a following. So the sooner you get going with that, the better. People have got to get used to the fact that you are available on social media.
But now you've raised an interesting thing, and that is that one should be proactive in terms of following other people that are going to link you with the people that you want to follow you as a tactic or a technique.
It's a very important technique because it gives you credibility amongst the masses. So what gets you to stand out is that your posts, so let's just say you did a silly video tonight with Priscilla the pig, and you hashtagged Miss Piggy.
Yeah.
And Miss Piggy came back and liked your post.
Yeah.
Well, all Miss Piggy's followers are now going to be interested in Priscilla the pig. What's the history? It's a topic of similarity to what they're following. So if we, for example, talking to comedians, because Joe, I'm picking on you again, if you aligned with the best comedians around the world and you posted a short video clip and they thought that was hilarious and they posted it on their site, sure, you're going to be going viral, sir. So that's how things work. It's just a case of following the right people to get the right people to follow you and having the right hashtags. So we all heard these hashtags.
Yeah. And showing an interest in what other people are posting and maybe commenting, liking it, even getting a discussion going on something that somebody else posted.
Let's take Coca Cola as an example. It's a worldwide brand. And yet Coca Cola will spend a lot of money getting you to hashtag Coca Cola in a post that you make, where they offer you winning something in a competition, because they are looking to spend a lot of money to try and get a following for their brand. And accordingly, they give you a carrot and a stick principle, and they get you to go out and hashtag their brand. But you're building a brand for them. So it's all around keywords, hashtags, following. And if you go into my Instagram account, because I'm doing a little bit of my own marketing here, you'll see that I follow probably 7,000 people in the running industry.
Yeah.
And as a result, I get a following back that's give or take 1,000 people that follow me. And it's an incorrect proportion, because one day when I'm famous, I'll be the 7,000 and the 1,000 will be, I'll only be following 1,000 and 7,000 will be following me.
Sure.
But it's a start. And it takes a long time. And the idea is really to get going.
Cool. So my last question that I'm going to ask before I invite other people to put their questions in the chat box, and that is, what tools are at your disposal for improvement?
So we discussed the first one, which is the self-tracking and framing camera. We've discussed headphones, because you'll see it's a no-no, Paul, for people in your profession to be using headsets. It's a no-go situation, because it kind of has some sort of a boundary that's built between us and you having headsets on. But certainly if you're giving instruction, if you're teaching students and you want them to hear everything, having the noise cancellation headphones is a good thing. Now, they also make that outside of your face. So they make noise cancellation microphones that you can have on the desk that will do the same thing. And you can have speakers and self-tracking cameras. So for very little money, you can get a 4K camera that you can mount on top of your laptop. You can put on a tripod. You can put on top of your computer screen. That gives you a very wide angle view. So you can have more than one person that joins you. You can have a very clear picture of you, very good close-up picture of you, very good lighting of you. You'll listen to Paul's videos on how to improve the lighting around you so that you look even, not like me. And then when you're giving instructions, instead of trying to get them in front of the camera, you have cameras that you can take and put in front of the subject. So let's just say you're doing a dissection of a frog for some biology students. You have cameras that you can plug in that run in conjunction with your camera on your laptop or your external camera. So you have two cameras, one focused on the subject, which will give you very good illuminated close-ups because the cameras have lights in. And then your normal camera where you can look up and look at your class or look at your attendees and address them whilst you're dissecting a frog. So there's lots of tools available. Go ahead.
That sounds incredibly complicated, but I think what you need to assure us is that the software allows for different cameras and it's pretty easy to set up. Am I right?
Yeah, so if we used an external camera like the Polycube, which Paul, you've tried as well, it's got its own drivers built in. So all you do is you plug the USB in, and it will set itself up. You don't have to worry about a thing with those, with cameras or external mics and all of that. They're all set, ready to go, ready to plug and play, as they call it.
Yeah, and I think one of the messages here is that platforms such as Zoom, because they're new to us, it doesn't mean that they're new. I mean, Zoom came around, Zoom is now over 9 years old, and it's been around for a long time. And all that time, they've been developing functionalities, which is why when we come along and we start looking at the settings, they look pretty complicated, but it's like that in a sense for a reason, because they've discovered things as they've gone along that the market needs.
Yeah. Look, the other thing we spoke about is nothing new on race day. Please don't play around with your settings on the day that you're running a webinar or a course. You need to have tried this before. So you see in the chat group that I've sent you into the settings menu, you've got a whole lot of boxes that you can tick and play with. And it's important that you do those. So one of those things, like what I spoke about, is your appearance. You can do that digitally to enhance your look as much as possible electronically, but also try those other features, but please not during an event. It's very important. And the other thing is to pay attention. We've learned the hard way today about Zoom bombing, and it's probably fortuitous that it happened to us, because everyone there got to see that it's a real thing. It can happen to anybody. How you, as soon as you're copying and pasting something outside of its natural way of entry, you're exposing yourself, and you need to be careful, because it can be very embarrassing, especially if you're dealing with younger kids, or if you're trying to get a first impression into a corporate environment. So those things I think we need to look at. Possibly, Paul, you need to do maybe a specific meeting on security protocol, because a simple thing that you're just used to, we all used to doing this, copy paste into a block and hit enter, and that is suicidal sometimes.
So the secret is to click on the link that you've been sent. Is that it?
Correct.
Rather than use the copy and paste technique. So you can actually request to people that they should do that. But then on the other hand, if someone happens to get hold of it and they want to bomb your meeting, they're going to do that anyway.
Look, this is a very relaxed environment, so we can speak about those things, and I think it's possibly important that we do. If you're getting a redirect message, please get out of it. Do not continue. It's very important that you remember that. And Paul, when the meeting requests go out to people, please let them know your full name has to be present when you enter, otherwise you will not be entered. You know, it's single names, nicknames, prefixes, anything like that will not be entered. And once they're in, it's very difficult to remove them. As you saw, it became almost impossible. You were trying to mute everyone and they were already in. So they were blocking your functionality from muting. So that's invasive software. It's exactly like a weed. Once it's in, it's in. So importantly is just to specify those rules and regulations up front when you invite people. So please do not redirect. Please enter on the link below only, etc., etc. Zoom, for all of you that have a local account of Zoom, I just want to take you through how you get support, because it seems to be the best kept secret, and it's actually quite easy. When you open up the home page, we are suggested that you go to the setup menu. There's a button there that says join. You click on join and you type zoom.support and you click enter. You will be in a support screen, and then you can get help where you can ask all these questions. The issue with a product like Zoom, with a product like Teams or any one of them, is that they evolve every day. Every time you ask to do an update, there is something that has changed. And something that wasn't possible yesterday is now possible today. And we can't keep up with how fast this product evolves. So you're often going to be able to log on to support and ask them something, and they will check on the latest releases and assist you further. But please make use of it. And if any of you want to try a webinar or try something, just be in contact with me and I'll give you a test license and we can try it. I might not be able to give you, if you're not local, I can't give you a test license locally. So I'd have to ask you for an alternative email address, and then I'll give you a test on that alternative email address.
So on that initial screen that you get where you've got the 4 icons, there's a button that says join. You click that and then you type in, and it's all lowercase. That's quite important, or it rejects it. I tried a capital Z for the Zoom and it didn't want to take it. So it's zoom.support, and you simply enter it and it'll take you through to the local support. Yeah,
so it's a whole lot of people sitting into a meeting. So for example, when Paul goes into that meeting, I can join him, but also typing zoom.support and I can go into that.